Well, wait, yep, I'm on. Okay, yep. We're live. Phil is in the back of the room talking to my acupuncture friends. He remembers fond days when they stuck him with needles. So I'm so grateful to see Laura here, Laura Eastman, the owner of the practice, and then Sheila and her new husband, Pat. I guess we can't call you new anymore. It's coming up on your 1-year anniversary. Yeah, oh gosh. So thank you so much. They came from Delaware, so I guess they get the prize for coming the farthest today. So nice to see them. Thank you. And good to see Laura, as always. Amazing. I'm so glad that you got to eat some of the food already, and please help yourself to more. There's plenty back there. And I am grateful to be able to share these slides with you. I did a test run with my family the other night and realized I had a lot of holes to fix, so I hope it's a little smoother now. But we'll see what happens. I'm going to try to give you a little education, and I'm not going to tell you how many slides are here because you'll probably leave, but we're going to go through them as quickly as possible. And help yourself. We're all adults here. Go get more food or water or whatever, especially if you've had that salt licorice and you don't like that flavor. Go have some water to take that out of your mouth. But Amsterdam was founded as a city in about 1275. So you'll know that what we're going to be seeing and thinking about today are old, the homes, beautiful houses, structures, old, and they were not bombed during World War II, and I will tell you a little bit more about that. This whole region of Amsterdam, Luxembourg, and Belgium is known as Benelux. B-E for Belgium, N-E for Netherlands. It's not Holland anymore. People like to call the country Holland, but Holland itself is a province within the Netherlands. So it's proper to call it the Netherlands now. That's correct. So Benelux, B-E Belgium, N-E Netherlands, and L-U-X Luxembourg. So Mark, you can give us the next picture, please. So this is just for, this is so funny, I brought my pointer and it works on the wall but not on the screen. So silly me. I'm just gonna have to do it the old-fashioned way. So you can see Amsterdam up there at the top. So I was so fortunate. I had a direct flight from Philadelphia to Amsterdam, which was about 6 hours there, but 8 hours coming home. And the time difference is 6 hours. So it's almost 5 p.m. in the evening now for my son in Amsterdam. So it's 6 hours, they're 6 hours ahead of us. Amsterdam, as I said, was a city, began in about 1275, and so it's an old city, and I'll show you lots of that actually. In the country, about half of the people, 55%, 15 years or older as of 2020, are not religious. 0, okay, 55%. 20% claim Catholicism, 14% claim Protestantism, 5% claim to be Muslim, and 5% claim, to be other, and that includes the Jewish population in 2020, and I'll talk to you more about that. The actual population of the Netherlands in 2020 was 8,217,000 some, and so that's where we start our tour. Next, please. And so it is a city of canals. And so what you see is that we took a canal cruise. That was one of the first things we did. And you'll notice the bikes. Take a look at that, okay? The bikes have fallen into the canal over time, many of the bikes. And we'll see a lot of pictures of bikes. I don't know why I took so many, but anyway, they're there. So the canal walls are starting to collapse because there are diggers going into the canal, digging up the bikes. And some of them are now helping to collapse the canal walls, which is just crazy, but it's the way it worked. And so they're stopping digging them out because they see what's happening and they want to preserve the canal walls, but it's already difficult. Very windy. I saw bikes fall over whole rows at a time because it was windy there when I was there. We're talking April. It was cool, actually cold some days, and so very interesting. Okay, next please. This is a part of the canal cruise. You can see my gray hair right there. And then this is the boat. It was very rainy, so the slats on the sides were down with clear, but they had these little tables that you could sit at, and they served us drinks. So we had wine and beer and soda and all kinds of stuff on the canal. The captain of the ship who was talking us through everything was very funny and gave us a lot of information. His family was Jewish and talked to us about what happened to his family during World War II, which I'm going to save for when we get to those slides too. Now the next thing we did, thank you. This is across from the Van Gogh Museum. We did see the Van Gogh Museum. The funny thing is there are 200 paintings in there, but one of the more popular ones that I am aware of is called Starry Night. Maybe you know that one too. But it was bought by the Metropolitan Museum of Art, of Modern Art, in 1941, and it has remained there because they own the rights to it now, and that's in New York City. So if you are hoping to see Starry Night, you will not get to when you are in Amsterdam. However, the rest of the museum is amazing. Almost all the museums we went to have little headphones that you could listen to and were cued on by a QR code on the wall. As soon as you walked by it, it activated the voice inside your little device, and they were in several languages, so we learned an awful lot. It was wonderful. But this is just a street view across the street. There's a couple more, so I'll invite you to right there. I want you to notice here the houses. They're pretty much all about that height, very close together. The cars, take a look at that. Next slide, yep. More houses, more bikes. There are more bikes than people in Amsterdam, and it's kind of cool. Go ahead for next. And see the little cars and how they can park together. 2 little cars take up the space of just one, and sometimes instead of parking parallel like that, they park straight in, which is kind of cool too, because they can fit in the width of that vehicle. But you can see the different kind of roofs and the old look of the place, because that's what we've got. Okay, I think we're going to the flower place next. Yep, I call this Keukenhof, but my son corrected me. It's Kokenhof, Mom. Didn't you read what I wrote you? My son, before I left for my trip, gave me a 6-page how to be a tourist in Amsterdam. Okay. About using my phone, about a SIM card, about getting around in the city, about walking in Amsterdam. A number 1 rule for pedestrians in Amsterdam is don't walk in the bike lanes. If you need to cross a bike lane, do so directly and quickly when there are no bikes coming from the other direction, because bike paths may be subtle or unclearly marked. They are examples at the end of this section. He included pictures so that I would know what it would look like. He did. He typed it up and sent it from Amsterdam. I copied it out on my computer.
You didn't cancel your trip.
I know. Are you kidding? See my son? No. Okay. Well, anyway, if he also goes on to say, if you hear a bike bell, it's probably aimed at you. Move. Anyway, there's more. If you want to get coffee, don't go to a coffee shop, because that's where they sell marijuana. So if you want coffee, you have to go to a place called a coffee salon or something else, like coffee company, coffee district, coffee house, anything but coffee shop. That's where they sell weed. And I understand they also sell hash in there too, so you don't want all of that. But anyway, maybe you do. I don't know. But if you're looking for coffee, it won't be there. Okay. So here we go. My friend that I hooked up with for the tour is right here. This is Jackie with the red hair. She and I were single tourers, and Andrea right over there with the brownish jacket on. We hung out pretty much together for the whole time, because it was mostly couples, 35 people on the tour, and they were from all over the country. Jackie happens to live in Delaware, so I'm hoping to hook up with her again at the end of the month of August. She's busy with her grandchildren in the meantime, so it's kind of fun. Okay, let's see the next. Flowers, flowers, flowers. We're going to go through these pretty quickly because I think I have 20 pictures of flowers. And just how many flowers can you see? I had Rich in mind when I was taking the pictures because I thought he might enjoy some of the color combinations. So hyacinths mixed with tulips. The tulips are shipped in from all over the country and all over that part of Western Europe, actually. This is like a Longwood Gardens on steroids, and so what happens is they make the design new every year. So they actually unplant the bulbs at the end of the season, store them away, label them what color they are, and label them for where they were this past year, but then they make a new design. Yeah, it's pretty amazing. And the color combinations are somewhat cool. You can see things that you may have never thought of. but it just goes on and on. Yep, it's beautiful. And then after a while you say, why am I taking all these flower pictures? But it's just amazing. I couldn't stop because they just had so many wonderful things. Now the flowers, because the country was in a cool spell, the flowers that you usually see on those picture postcards with huge masses of flowers of one color, those were not blooming yet because it was too cool. But these were forced to bloom somehow and then were planted specifically for these color parts. Go ahead. There. In the middle of it was a petting zoo kind of thing for children. So that's one picture. We have another picture of it coming up. Yep, so there were goats and all kinds of stuff, which was fun. And the next picture I think is for, oh yeah, no it's not next. Where is it? It's coming. Yep. Go ahead, Mark. Yep, there's my friend Jackie taking a picture. She did much better with her pictures. She got right there for the flower, right? I was taking big scopes so you could see what we had. Hey, in the middle of the park is a windmill. So we were actually able to go up in that windmill and go around the top part and look out. So that was neat to see. Oh, and here it is for Paula. A carillon in the middle of the park. And it played throughout the day, and that was cool to see. So the next picture, I think you have both the windmill and the carillon. Yeah, with more color. Now, we were walking through the park, and we said, we hear music. Where's this coming from? So we kept walking a little further, and I think the next picture should show, nope, not yet. See all the color combinations, though, and the way they did stuff? It's just so cool. And that goes as far as the eye can see. I don't know if you can check that, but that red, unbelievable. This is the calliope. So it was playing music, and the next picture is of the back of it. So although it had a CD in there, and it could play a CD, it also had this thing running the different drums up here on the right-hand side. You can see they look almost like mouse traps, but they were banging other stuff and making sound.
This is my song.
That's your song?
You see it? This
Where?
is my song.
Oh my gosh, I do see it, one of the top ones on the left.
Yeah.
Yeah, they had all different kinds of tunes they were playing. It was cool. So can you go backwards one just to show the front of it? So I took it, these people were standing there and I thought, I'm going to do that so you can see how big they are. This whole thing was pretty monstrous. It was cool. Okay. Okay, you can go ahead. Oh, and so there were cows everywhere. Some of you know I like cows, so this was an important picture to me, and I took that with the city line of Amsterdam there. There were several throughout the park and other places. The Keukenhof, okay. More flowers. The black tulips, that's what those were. Mm-hmm. In the place, there were several different buildings where you could go to see more extensive flowers, get food, have a bathroom kind of a thing. So I thought this was fascinating because they're all straw flowers or dried flowers. So I asked Jackie to stand in front of it so that we could see the size of it. It was massive, as you can tell. Oh. There we are. She took all the pictures of both of us, and I was so grateful that she was willing to send me her slides and incorporate them into the program today. So she's a sweetie. She actually was a chiropractic doctor, so I got to have wonderful conversations with her. Andrea, my other friend there, who was traveling solo, and then these are two costume guides, as you can see, wearing some of the traditional dress. And now the end of the program, or the end of Keukenhof, or Keukenhof, as Kevin says, there's the fountain as you're exiting the place. Next, we're going to the cheesemaker who made the Gouda, or should we say Gouda, is how it's pronounced. This is the cheesemaker. He had a little dairy farm. Somehow I didn't get pictures of those cows, but this is the cheese thing that he has, and you can see some on the back sitting around. It was covered in wax, so I brought 15 pounds of that kind of cheese home for you all, and took the wax and the coating off today for you to have some to try. And not only did he make cheese, but he made wooden shoes. Okay, so the next machine is going to be a picture of how they start. These are the clogs or the wooden shoes. And then the next picture is a machine of how it's made. So it's hard to tell, but That's his backside, sorry. But anyway, this, there are two of those shapes put in over here, and then the shoes actually get made on the upper left of the machine, and they carve the outside, and then a little stick comes in and carves out the inside, and they're done. It's pretty amazing. But look at all the shoes he has sitting around. Yep, and that's another version of it, just a little brighter. But they paint them in the winter when there's not too much sales stuff or tours. They have about 3 or 4 tours a day where he brings groups like R35 through, and then he does it just like Disney. At the end is the gift shop. There, me and Jackie again. Yep, I was so grateful to have her to hang out with. It was wonderful. So you can see all the wooden shoes. The most frequent time wooden shoes are worn anymore today is for weddings. They design a wooden shoe that is looks like lace on the outside because they cover it with some kind of a stencil or something, and it has white, looks like lace. That's the best way I can say it. And then the bride and the groom would each get a pair, groom's being bigger, as you know. But anyway, next slide, please. Here we go. Now we're going to a new country. So we are going on to Luxembourg. So if you can see, I don't know where to stand to help you. From Amsterdam, we're going down to that little yellow country in the bottom right. So it was a pretty long bus ride, although we stopped on the way at a place called Maastricht, which is between the Netherlands and Belgium, and then we came on down into Luxembourg. Luxembourg is an older country. It has got some medieval look to it because it was put together, when did it birth? 963 was the birth of Luxembourg, and this is the medieval gate. There's 2 levels, which you will see, an old city level and a new city level. There's minimal crime in Luxembourg. There's only 1% to 2% of violent offenders, and our tour guides gave us lots of information. But this is a picture of cobblestone streets or bricked streets where your car goes bump, you know, and some of the old architecture. This is a square. Many of these cities in Europe have these big squares where people would gather, or it would just be for, you know, people getting out of church could hang out together. And this was very important for a lot of the men on our tour. They really wanted to learn about World War II. So this, I was very proud to be an American. This was built by the Americans. It's the Luxembourg American Cemetery and Memorial. So just a beautiful entry gate, but we had less than 10 minutes here to look around. You know how it is with a tour. And so unfortunately, we didn't get to see a whole lot. However, I did get some pictures because Jackie's father fought in the Battle of the Bulge. And so she was very interested, but this was the monument that they had in the beginning of it that we saw, and it was dedicated to proud remembrance of the achievements of her sons and in humble tribute to their sacrifices. This memorial has been erected by the United States of America. Okay. Here's one of the pictures that depicts the movement of the forces throughout World War II. And so you could stand there and see where different battles were fought based on what each of those little squiggly lines meant. And it was color-coded to indicate which force the Allies versus the Nazis or whatever were fighting. And so that was fascinating. But the next picture is another grid like it, but a different part of the world. And so that was interesting to see too. I don't know why I never learned this stuff in high school. I guess they didn't teach us. It's possible because it was so devastating, so I'm not really sure. I was sleeping. Yeah, that's possible too. I don't know. Even my brother, when I did this for him the other night, he said, no, we just never were taught this stuff in school. So I don't know. And then thousands upon thousands of crosses symbolizing the dead. There's one woman buried here, the rest are all men, and they are for the United States soldiers who gave their lives. Now, we're on the top of the old city of Luxembourg, and we're looking at the train, and there are old, you'll see the old businesses and such at the top, but the down part, if you go to the next slide, I think, we're gonna look down, not yet, but you can see that there's a high level up here, and then we'll see the lower level in a minute. This is a flag, of course. And I think the next one is a memorial statue that I wanted you to see. Yep. So it's again in honor of the soldiers who fought and as well as those who died in Luxembourg. And so there's some imagery there of a person lying there dead. And the top of the statue was so big I couldn't get it all in one picture, but a person holding a wreath in gold to symbolize that. And that is the whole one. When I stood back a little further, I could do that. Yeah. This is St. Michael's, the first church in Luxembourg. And again, the architecture is amazing. And now this is where we are. We're looking through to the lower part, and along the walls, which were fortification for the city, there were holes and little caves, and we'll see that next. I keep expecting it to be there, it's not there. I think because I was too busy taking this picture of these beautiful buildings at the bottom level. Yep. There we are at the top. Those are some of my tour buddies, and we were taking pictures looking down on the old city, and that was surrounded by these walls initially, and that's where they were fighting from in the little caves that were indented into the walls. You can see them better in another slide. There's Jackie again, and you can see some of the little caves in that slide. It was a nice day that day. I was very grateful. We had some sun. Every day it rained, at least a little bit, at some point in the morning or in the afternoon. Now, where am I? I didn't eat there. That's why it's a little bit shaky, because I said to Jackie, I just got to get a picture of this. I took the picture and ran out. Yeah, so it was the Mick menu. Do you see that? It's just funny.
Is that a Mick Smart menu?
Mick Smart menu. Cool. Yeah. Probably because it was a special, like a sandwich special. Yeah. No, I did not eat there. Here's where we ate. Every day we had a meal at lunchtime. Jackie was really good at wanting to do that. So instead of eating my snacks, I ended up eating them for dinner. I have this that we ate at lunch. This was an omelet. And they served everything with frites, which they called them frites, not French fries, but frites, and a little salad. That was pretty typical. And the lunch varied. You could get an omelet or other sandwich foods and things like that. But they were all outdoor cafes, which we'll see some of those as we go along. Yep. And now we're going into Belgium. Okay, so we're going into this big green country. We're going to stop first at Bastogne, which is down here near the bottom of the country, sort of right next to the tip of Luxembourg. And they have a beautiful memorial there also that the United States government built, and this is the only picture I got of it, but inside the other building part, this is the memorial monument on the property, and it was rainy that day. You can see the gray clouds, but it was just fascinating, the actual experience that was in that memorial building. It was fabulous. And that's a tank, as you can tell. It is there because that's where it died during the war, and they never took it away. So it has a plaque. I think the next slide will show you the plaque in 4 languages. In the English upper right, this tank knocked out in December of '44 recalls the sacrifice of all the fighters for the liberation of Bastogne and Belgium. Yep, so they leave it there as a reminder. And now we're going to the monastery. Here's the monastery where they made the beer and the cheese that you were tasting, the second flavor of cheese. This is in a little town called Dinant. And
They wanted to know where our sample of beer was.
I'll show you, there's a slide. No, there is a slide coming next actually, but the reason that the monastery makes the cheese and the beer, for that matter, is that they're not funded by any outside source. So they had to figure out how to maintain their own existence thus the cheese making and the beer making. And we'll see, yep, there it is. I ate it, I drank it. I didn't drink it all, I can't, I'm not a big beer drinker. So anyway, I just had a little bit to try it, but that, I took that because it was a, it was something I could show you, so it's on the back table.
So is that an idea for some fundraisers?
It could be, absolutely. Why not? Yes, indeed. So this is a monastery property. This is the courtyard looking around. And the monks actually do live there and still make the beer and cheese. And I'll show you a little further on about how that works. It's kind of interesting. This is out my hotel window in Brussels. Brussels is a big place. It's got 1.2 million people, and it is a center of commerce for the European area. However, Brussels also has a lot of international banks, and people use that because the bankers there speak 4 languages. And so it's pretty easy for them to be able to use banks, and some of our money goes there as well because that's where it gets good interest rates and so forth. Our tour guide actually showed us a place where Biden always stays when he goes to do some international meetings there. Brussels is a UNESCO site, and so that's why lots of big things happen there. So out my window, you see some construction going on right in the middle of town where there's other big buildings hanging out there too. There it is. What does that remind you of, anyone?
Jack's.
Epcot, Jack's. How about the Atom? Does anybody see that? Okay, so this was built in 1958 for the World's Fair. So it was a pretty massive structure, so I think that's why they didn't make it go away. So they kept it, they restored it in 2006, and now you can get married inside there. You can have events and overnight sleepovers for kids. And the next slide is the same. Maybe I got the whole thing on it this time. But you can actually walk into it. Once again, the bus only stopped for 5 minutes, so we weren't able to go in it or anything, but that was that. This is a basilica that's in Belgium, this and the next picture. And we did not go in any of these churches or anything. Go ahead, Mark. But I have no idea what some of these churches are called. I have no idea what all these buildings are going to be. So that could be a palace. The kings and queens in any of these, although there's a guy that looks like a pope. So I think it might be more of the church and the basilica. So I'm not sure. That's the problem. But anyway, there is the Ferris wheel. Oh, we were excited. We were going to go on this Ferris wheel so we could see the whole city. We got there and it was down for maintenance. They said it would be an hour. In America, that means it's going to be 6 hours, right? So we went for a little walk, and so we will come back to this. We went then with the tour group to an indoor mall, which was called the Grand Palace Marketplace, and there were these statues all along through this mall, and there were shops, mostly food shops, and some very fine purses and things like that. You can go to the next slide because it's a chocolate shop. We stopped at Mary's Chocolate, and it was since 1919 in Brussels. And it has down below, I couldn't get the picture right, the lighting wasn't good, or I picked, now you went to him too soon. He was giving us samples. And didn't people from the crowd come and be part of our group to get a sample? No. Oh my gosh, this poor man who worked so hard to make us these samples. Well, anyway, it was funny, but we did hey, you're not a part of that group, get out of here. It was pretty interesting. But anyway, this Mary's Chocolate, it has a seal of the country. This is another square where I stood in the middle of the square, and the next 4 pictures are just me turning around and taking pictures of all the buildings. And I have no idea what they are, but lots of them have gold brandishments on them, and it could be that they are government buildings. Yep. So it's kind of wild. Oh, I think the next picture is the mascot of Belgium. Yes, it is. There he is. 3-foot-tall peeing boy as the mascot of Belgium. He has 1,100 outfits. They change him daily. Can you imagine? Yes, and he is the tour site. I mean, you can see all the people. I couldn't even get close enough to get a picture without heads in it. This
looks like Paddington there.
It does, he does, but you'll see him all naked in a little bit. But it says change in rainbow letters. These countries are much more liberal than we are as the United States. But anyway, unfortunately, this peeing boy will be found everywhere, and you'll see what I mean in
I
a little
went to a
bit.
seminar about him one time,
Oh, good.
and they had like hundreds of his outfits.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, 1,100
And
altogether.
there's a person from our group who was an advisor for one of the couture things he was wearing.
Yeah, yeah. Absolutely. There it is again, the Ferris wheel. And so we found it, but we're going to be interrupted. We can't go. This was while we were on a bus to get to the chocolate and beer pairing class. So we made chocolate. They put us down into groups of people, and we had to temper the chocolate. If you've ever made chocolate from the base material, this is what we had to do: stir it until it came to a certain, and we were using these little things that look like guns to figure out what temperature it was till it got to the proper tempered temperature. And so we made them in these little molds, and so that's what we're doing. And there was this technique you had to use and tap it, and I don't know, it was just crazy, but it was fun. So we did that, and then they put them in the freezer, and then this is our teacher, and she was giving us trays of nuts and raisins and all kinds of things, and she made a ganache, and then she, in the back behind her in these silver canisters were little flavorings like caramel sauce and things like that that we could put in our chocolates. Yeah, I was gonna give you some of my homemade chocolate, but it turned all white because that's what happens to chocolate after if it's real chocolate, you can know that that's the case. So they're here if you wanna see them. I didn't eat them all. I was trying to be very good, okay? But anyway, okay.
I thought
So,
that's why she wouldn't, I thought that's why you wouldn't get any.
well, no, I really tried hard to not eat them, but when they started turning white, I felt bad for them. I thought I should eat them. This was part of the beer pairing when we actually had to put a chocolate in the beer and taste it and to see if it made sense. They had the beer pairing wasn't what I thought it would be. They had everything all organized ahead of time, so it was only 3 different beers. I think I have a picture of the 2 beers that we worked with, yes, there to try to figure it out. But they just had it so that you knew this beer was on a sour kind of a flavoring, so therefore you had the chocolate that was a little more balanced for it. That's really what it was about, and it was fun though. We had a good time. And there it is again. So, I think this could be the time. Yes, when we go up in the Ferris wheel, and we're taking pictures from the big wheel right now. There's a couple pictures of those. There it is though, the demolition. We walked past this. Demolition right happening. Go to the next slide, Mark, because you'll see next to a building that's being used, and they're tearing this down. We were walking on the street, and they have that green cloth there, but concrete pieces were falling and going and putting smoke, and I'm like, oh my gosh, it's getting in my eyes. It was just really crazy right there, right close, certainly. So it was fascinating. In the middle of everything, they weren't afraid to take down an old building to put something new, which is okay. That's what they did. The peeing boy again, but someone forgot to give him new clothes. But this is a much better image. You now see for sure what he's doing. Yes, indeed. That's with one of the famous hats, and there's without the hat. So anyway, yes, indeed. And there's Jackie, my friend, and we were having waffles for lunch that day. The waffle on the left is called a Liege waffle, and that is one more like my mom used to make at home. It's a little doughier. It has the chocolate as you see on it. And then the one on the right is the Belgian waffle, which is lighter and fluffier with a little bit of powdered sugar and a mountain of cool cream. What is that stuff on there? Whipped cream, right, yeah. I preferred the one on the left just because it was more substance, but the one on the right was definitely delightful. It melted in your mouth. It was really swell. And another church. And the Ferris wheel again. Now, let's see, I think from one of my pictures, yes, it's on this picture, you can actually see the atomium back there. There's some buildings popping up in the very kind of center of the picture, but if you go to the right, and if you just see that little bit of silver in there, you can see the atomium from where we were on the Ferris wheel. So you can breeze through these two. There's a couple, yeah. Notice the roofs, the different lines of buildings. Old and new. And there we are again. Now, look, get some more waffles. Enjoy and let your mouth water. Yes, indeed. We didn't try any of those. They were a little pricey, but they sure look beautiful. So they were worthy of a photograph. And these next ones too. Yep. And one more just for fun. And look who's there! He's everywhere. Yes, indeed. It was almost embarrassing. Now, this is our goodbye dinner. The tour had come to a close for the 10 days that most everyone stayed on it. And so we had the fortune to have a closed restaurant, and they served us the stew and none other than frites and beer, of course. And so we did that, and then my friend Jackie was headed home, but I signed on to stay extra to go see the city of Bruges, which is coming next. So we stayed at this hotel, NH Bruges. It was actually a monastery long ago. Here we are walking down the street in Bruges. And what you see now is a typical kind of a street scene with the monastery and the nunnery in the background there. Just some amazing spires and tallness. Old buildings. And another section that looks very medieval. More pipes. This is an exciting picture. Do you see under the plexiglass there's two pipes? They are moving beer from the place it is being made to the restaurant. Isn't that cool? Now, this is not a place that is driven on. This is a walking tunnel, but it's a fascinating concept that you can see the product go from one place to the next and get it right out of the tap. In that same tunnel, it was a walking tunnel, and we'll let Mark show you what's on the wall that I saw, that same tunnel. So I can't tell you what it says because it's written in Dutch or Latin, but it is old and certainly a religious reference. Okay. So we are in Bruges. This is called the Lake of Love. Our tour guide is sitting there. Susan, she reminded me so much of you just because of her hair, but she was very delightful and taught us. Each place we went, they had local tour guides, which was perfect because they were able to speak to us in English, but they spoke to our tour director who spoke 7 languages, and she could flip back and forth between them very easily. And so with each of the tour guides, she could speak their native tongue too. But this is a place, if a person lived there and was in good standing and had paid well for their home, there was a time where all of a sudden their rent was cut off and they were granted to live there for life. And that was what we were told. That was one of those houses. So it's pretty cool. But if only that would work out in our lives. How about it here in the States? Yep. And, yep, another old building, so you can see. And that's another church. And yet another one. And indeed another cow. He's outside of a restaurant, actually. And I had to take the picture, chocolate and happiness, right? Chocolate is my thing, many of you know, so that was fun. And yes, I just like the way the light was coming through that particular church building. And that was probably a palace of some kind. The kings and queens do not have any power. They are all pretty much just ambassadors for life. The governments are run by other people in other ways in all three of these countries that we visited. And so the kings and queens are more just heads of state, just to look good and to be part of the public, face of the country. This is another square in Bruges. And along there, you can see where people are standing behind them. Those are all the different restaurants that you could go to choose something to eat. Most of them had their menus posted right at the entranceway, so you could decide if you wanted to eat there or not. And so that was fun. Then we went on a canal tour, and you see my finger gun in the picture. How on earth? But anyway, you can tell it was me taking the picture. It was not a purchase photo. But we went on yet another canal tour, which was fabulous. And this is in Bruges, and so we're going along, and everybody had to duck for this one. The bridge was low bridge. So we all ended up having to duck. Yep. And another bridge. And some beautiful, just right up against, the canal water was high enough that we were just about able to walk off the boat. And another bridge. This is the one with the swans. I don't know if you can see them, it's pretty far away, but there's 90 swans living in the city of Bruges. The city takes care of them, feeds them, and cleans up after them. And so it's a kind of a thing they do. And this, of course, the best Belgian chocolates by Chocoholic. I could just go work there right now. That makes sense. And another picture, because we were there right after Easter, so some of the Easter decorations were still beautiful. I just want to crash through that window and eat that all up. This is a picture of my room, just because they had such nice rooms. This used to be a monastery, this hotel that we stayed in, and so one day the tour group went on an outing that I chose not to pay for, so I just spent the day in the hotel wandering around. So let's see what else I found in there. I think the next picture could be, let's see, there it is. Stained glass picture of Jesus. You can see the way he has his hands with the stigmata. That's called the stigmata, where the nails were on the cross, and down on his feet. You can just barely see that. But this is fascinating. It's a woman in the stained glass. That was unheard of in those days. And so I'm not sure how she quite got into this picture or this glass, but it's fabulous. I loved it. And they were on the same wall, just a little bit apart, in one of the meeting rooms that they had upstairs when I was exploring. So it was fabulous. A windmill. This is the current windmill that they use. When we flew into Amsterdam, there were several of these posted in the ocean, because it's so windy. When the planes would come in, it would do a good job. But this is out of the bus. I'm going from Bruges now to Amsterdam to link up with my son. So the rest of these pictures now will be in Amsterdam. So I got into the train station where the bus actually was a part of this train station, and a rainbow crossing here, symbol of diversity, freedom, and acceptance of lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and intersex people. And I want to show you the walkway and how it was painted.
Wow.
Yeah, it's very well worn, but that was put together November 25 of 2016. And this is at the train station as well as the bus station. There's 4 different kinds of transportation, which I'll talk to you about in a little bit. So that's just another picture of the whole thing, and you can see the colored walkway. So now we're back in Amsterdam. And more bikes. Go ahead, Mark. There's a bunch of them. That's a typical street scene where people outside of their apartments will be parking bikes. Long rows. There's my son. Hi, Kevin. And he's at apartment number 77, which was up a flight, and then he was just to the right, his apartment. And I think the next one is a picture of it. Yes. And that's his girlfriend, Tess. She plays the harp. This is their apartment, very nice and spacious. She's a minimalist decorator, and so it was lovely appointed. And the doors back there, you can see, are some stained glass pieces. That's the door into the bedroom. You can take the next picture, I think, too. Oh no, he took me for an explore of Amsterdam. So we went by vehicle to get to downtown, and this is the Amsterdam National Monument. It's to commemorate the casualties of World War II and subsequent armed conflicts. On the back wall, you can probably see that, there are inside that wall 11 urns of soil from World War II execution grounds and war cemeteries in each of the Dutch provinces. 3 years later, a 12th urn was added with soil from the Dutch East Indies, which is now known as Indonesia. This statue was dedicated on the 4th of May in 1956. It's quite a point of contention. There's a lot of dissension about it. You see, it almost looks like Jesus on the cross in the middle, if you kind of can see that, the way that is. But it's a person who's bound like the soldiers who were captured were, and then there's two other people, and each of the different statues around the base of the monument have meaning. There's weeping dogs at the bottom to signify the people who were sad, but it's really supposed to be an emblem of liberty. But every night in the 60s and the 70s, a sizable crowd of hippies slept around the monument in sleeping bags. People didn't like that. You see the different circles around the base of the monument, and that was all just filled with different people. And so the municipal government banned Dam Slapen, which means damn sleeping. This is called Dam Circle. And so they had a riot there, and they made the people go away. Off-duty Marines came in and took them to another location and made them move. But it was quite the thing. And there it is. He took me to get frites, French fries, or whatever we want to call them now. I have to figure that out. And guess who's on the napkin? You see it in the bottom?
Oh, yeah.
Can you go back to that real quick, Mark? The peeing boy's on the napkin. What's he doing on my napkin? Well, it must have been a Belgium company that was having these napkins made. I don't know. But the frites, we got them in this cone kind of a thing, and you can get all different kinds of sauces. The mayonnaise in Amsterdam is very different. It's sweet. It's not like our mayonnaise. It's kind of weird sweet. So Kevin gets mayonnaise and dips his French fries in the mayonnaise. But there are also different sauces that they made. So I had mine with ketchup, but this cone-shaped thing. And you just walk around the city eating your little French fry frites as they were, and that was it. It was fun. So that's what we had to get. And this is called Zandschwans, where there's windmills. And so that was the first one. And I think the next picture, here we are. Okay. And then the next picture shows all the windmills out in the water, all lined up. And there was a wonderful museum there, and we got to really understand a little bit more about the area and how they used it. And they also talked to us about that Verkade chocolate, which was supposed to be number 6, but I ate it. And there wasn't any to share, so sorry. This is a John F. Kennedy statue. One of these days, every day at my son's, they would go to work. They didn't take vacation because they didn't have enough to do that while I was there. So I would sleep on this air mattress on the floor in this spare bedroom, and there'd be about 5 inches for me to get out of bed and stand up. So it was every muscle I had to be able to stand up out of bed. And I would get up in the morning, I'd watch them go to work on their bicycles, I'd wave to them out the window, and then I would go and work on my computer. Shamefully, I had emails on my computer, my laptop, my church computer, which I took with me. I was grateful for that, but there were emails on there from 2017. And beyond. And so I had thousands of emails that I needed to delete. So every morning I spent about 3 hours doing that, which was very successful. However, about that time I was starting to get hungry for lunch. So I'd get dressed and then I'd go on and explore for the afternoon. And by then it was usually sunny, and I'd find all these different things. So I put in my GPS so I could get back to my son's apartment. And then I would just walk a different way every time and find out if I could get lunch. So this statue fascinated me. The boulevard was named John F. Kennedy Boulevard, and the statue has on its inscription there, January 20, 1961, from JFK's inaugural address, "Let every nation know, whether it wishes us well or ill, that we shall pay any price, bear any burden, meet any hardship, support any friend, or oppose any foe, in order to assure the survival and success of liberty." And those were the words they etched on that statue, which was interesting. Yes, one of those electric cars. By January 1st of 2025, all government-use vehicles, delivery vehicles, must be emission-free or electric. So they are making a huge motion. Buses, trucks, all of that. But it would just be a one person. I should have tried to stand next to it to give you a kind of an idea, but it's very small. It's just about for one person. Very cool. These are the canals with the boats there. Most of the boats belong to rich people. The boats do not belong to common people. Only the rich can afford even just those kinds of boats. And in other area, the canal boats look really like houseboats. They're really cool. I think I got rid of those pictures. They weren't that great. But this is a decent picture. There we are at the Burger Bar. So I took him out to dinner as many times as I could to thank him for keeping and hosting me. And then there's daisies in the park. Can you see them? They're standing up kind of around the tree, and they're very tall. And that's a little park where kids could play. There's several of those throughout the area where I was walking. Now the roofs, I took this for the Akel family. So we have roofers here. You can see that there are no shingles to be found. These are clay roofs, and they're different colors, which is kind of cool. But I was fascinated by that. Everything is clay roof, definitely. This is the Jewish Multicultural Center, and so we did spend some time there. Kevin got me tickets to the Holocaust Museum too, which we saw that same day. And the Jewish population of of Amsterdam only in 1939, before the war, was 75,000 to 80,000 people. During the war, 80% of the pre-war Jewish population died. That was approximately 64,000 Jewish people. The city did not get bombed because Nazi Hitler and Nazi Germany made a deal with the Jewish cultural people. They had this situation where they formed Jewish councils in various parts of the Jewish area. And the Jewish councils basically ratted out their Jewish brothers and sisters to the Nazis and said, well, we got Jewish living here, living here, living here, living here. The Jewish people then came to the council, paid for their ticket on the train, which they thought was taking them out of the city, which took them directly to Auschwitz. And so they paid for their very own tickets. Now, the people, it was horrible. As I told you earlier, one of the canal boat drivers was Jewish. He said that his family, the Nazis took over his family home, and they took over the business. They ran it bankrupt, and it was done. When the people that lived finally were able to come back and reclaim their homes, the Nazis wouldn't leave. And so they had to fight to get their homes back. There was no aid for any of the returning Jews who made it through the Holocaust to come back, and nobody gave them a penny to help start their businesses, their lives, getting themselves settled again. So they relied on people who survived it that were members of their family who could help them get a leg up to come back. But so many were killed that there were so few left. And it was just very, very sorrowful. Just unbelievable, actually. So the Netherlands population itself in 1939 was 8,700,000 some. And so that was diminished because of this massive attack on the Jewish population. But because of that deal that they made with the Jewish councils, they promised to not bomb Amsterdam. They decided instead to bomb Rotterdam, which was in the Netherlands, and it was an important port city. And there was supposedly a memo that went out to say, don't bomb it, we're not gonna do that today. But the memo never got there, and it got bombed, and the total center of the city is obliterated now. I saw some pictures on the internet when I was researching to make sure I had my facts straight. But the whole thing was just so sad. That's probably why we didn't learn about it in school, I guess, because it was so just unbelievable, I'm guessing. But the Holocaust Museum, I think, I don't have a picture of any of that. That's about it for the Jewish Cultural Center. The Holocaust Museum was very, very moving. They have actual footage of Jews who survived speaking to the camera, saying from what they saw. They had to wear these yellow stars on their shirts to indicate that they were Jewish. They were not allowed to go to any public places, and there were curfews and things like that that kept them in their homes and not socializing with each other because they didn't want the people talking to hear what was going on the outside world. Finally, by the end of the war, one of the Jewish councils realized what was happening, and they were able to save over 5,000 people from going to Auschwitz or one of the camps. There were several camps right close to the Amsterdam area, but that was just too little too late, as you know that phrase. So anyway, this was what I thought was a cute picture. The timing and the sun and everything was just right. We walked, after seeing that Jewish Cultural Center stuff, to see Tess. Kevin's girlfriend works at the University of Amsterdam, and she's in charge of putting rooms into place for tests and for classes on campus. And so she was getting off work. We were going to go to a Japanese restaurant to have food for dinner, and then she was going off to her harp lesson, which is cool. But this was on the bridge. I took this picture off of a bridge right outside of the University of Amsterdam, which is spread throughout the whole city, but you can see the reflection. I just thought that was pretty cool. So it almost looks like a postcard. Here's how they recycle. Yay, I'm a big recycler, right? So these are out in the street on the sidewalk. And so this bin is where you put your recycling. Go to the next picture, Mark. It tells you exactly how to do it. You gotta tear up the stuff and you put it in there and you do all the steps there. And then I guess sometimes the municipal workers come out and empty the bins and you start all over again. That's how trash is collected too. So there's no trash cans flying around in the middle of the street or anything. It's all very well done.
And they're not vandalized
Mm,
or anything.
Not vandalized. And speaking of vandalism too, more bikes. Kevin said that everybody who lives in these apartments could be paying very different rent. There is rent controlled stuff for people who don't have the money, and they could be living right next to you. There are no ghettos in Amsterdam, not any place where all the poor people live together. They live all throughout the city. They're given the same opportunities as everybody else, and you don't know if your neighbor is receiving X amount of subsidy dollars or not. And so everybody kind of just gets along. It's very cool, actually, and I think it's a great idea because that keeps down crime. It also keeps down the population of not being along, getting along. And there's a book back there, I think, on the table that says I Amsterdam. So they're doing this big thing now that I am Amsterdam, right? So they're wanting to have people getting along. That's a huge thing for what they want to have people doing together. And so it's very interesting. So there's the, Kevin, now he's 25. He doesn't believe in God anymore. You know how that hurts my heart. God has a sense of humor. Just catty corner out Kevin's window is a Lutheran church. Every Sunday at 10:50, they play the bells to signify that church is starting on a Sunday morning. And he gets to hear that. It's so funny. And I was going, that's not, maybe, there's hope.
A daily reminder.
So I was sitting down at the bench. The church is just off to the right, but this bird landed, and I thought, oh, that's a sign. I got to take a picture of this cool bird. But anyway, that was it. I just, God has a way of telling us that it's going to work out okay. Somehow it does. But, here we go. Now, I wish I had my pointer. Can you see that white beam coming out of the, okay. Can you see the little hook? Okay. This is up at the 3rd floor. They have a pulley system to take your furniture up to the 3rd floor because the stairs are too narrow. Plus, if they're going to renovate your building, they're going to take sheets of plywood or whatever, drywall, and send them up through that little pulley system too. It's very cool. So my brother, when he was looking at this, he said, those must be steel beams to be able to carry that heavy kind of stuff. The engineering mind of my brother dear. And it's so funny, but that's true. There's houses, they have them all over the place. That's how they do it. Yep. And again, that's outside of his building, and you see little markings on the left. That's why I left this picture in. That's what it looks like when it designates a bike zone. These little triangles in the ground are painted on, but the streets are all made of, it's not concrete, it must be brick or some kind of cobblestone thing or something. It's cool. But bikes like that lined up everywhere. Yeah. Parents driving kids in those little things. I saw a parent having 2 little kids in a basket on the front and a kid in the back of their bike. But you can see those little hooks again. So I wanted you to see to catch that, to see how that is. And there they are, Kevin and Tess. They don't wear shoes in their home, but this is them dressed out to go to a party on Friday night. The party was about 15 minutes away by bicycle, and my son didn't spring for a train ride to get Tess to the party. They rode their bikes. And then when they came home at midnight, it poured, and they got home, and they were soaked. But anyway, she agreed to do it too, so they took the ride anyway. It was a work party. He works for a company that has 450 employees, and they were having this big party. But when Kevin goes to work, he rides his bike. When he gets to work, he uses the gym. Then he uses a shower that they provide. Then he eats the breakfast that they provide. Then he gets a lunch that they provide, and then he rides his bike home. And then wake up, do the same thing tomorrow. So he's computer programming in Java with a big company that works with software and makes software for themselves to use. But anyway, he loves it. Your mother's heart, he said to me, Mom, I have never been happier. That's just what you want to hear, and I just felt so good that he looked so healthy. Tess is vegetarian, so she cooks wonderful vegetarian meals that I enjoyed while I was with them. And then he just eats healthier because of all these wonderful things. He rides his bike everywhere. There's an Aldi just down the street from them, so she needed some ingredients for something, so he hopped on his bike and he had his backpack and he left everything in his backpack and came right back, and it was amazing. So it was really cool. We went to a street fair. Have you ever gotten a funnel cake at a street fair? Maybe at a fair or something? Well, this is called strip waffles. You've had some, right? So these are the big ones down in the bottom right. They cover them with Nutella or chocolate, but usually in the middle they put caramel, which is the ones that you had today. So here he is slicing up. You can just barely see it. It's just about, a little small pizza size. But they slice it thin and spread the caramel and then hand it to you warm. It was so good. It was so good.
With
really
chocolate drizzled over it?
No chocolate. The caramel was enough for me, man. It was so good. I had trouble finishing it. That same fair, we also had something called kibberling, which is like, what you get a bucket of chicken looks like. That's a pretty good size. Well, we got a bucket of kibberling, which is fish that's breaded, and then they serve it with a remoulade sauce that you can dip it in. And so we stood there in the rain eating that too. And then it stopped raining by the time we got the strip waffles. They were so yummy. So good. So there are different kinds of transportation. Here it is. We have a tram. We also have a bus. We have a metro, which is underground, and we have above ground trains. But this was the tram. They all use a little card, and it has I should have taken a picture, that would have been a good thing, but it's all electronic. You just show your card, and they know exactly where you got on, exactly where you got off, exactly how much you spent. So if somebody doesn't tap their card, they know. So it's a fascinating thing. We were at the train station, and a woman said to Kevin, "Can you let me come through? I forgot my card." And he said, "No, I can't," because he knew that she was trying to get on without paying for it. At the other end, she'd try to let somebody get out because they track all of that stuff. So he was standing up for what he thought was right, as I talked this morning. And here we are on the tram. But, here we are at the castle. The oldest living castle. We're almost done now. We're coming down the home stretch for those of you who are tired of sitting. And so we have the castle. The castle was built in 1285. It is the oldest castle in the Netherlands. It's called Muiderslot, and it has a moat around it, which you'll be able to see. Go ahead, Mark. The next picture is Tess trying on the armor. It was on this bar that you had to kind of lift up to put yourself kind of in it, and she had trouble lifting it up, and she is very strong. The next picture in the castle is looking up into the one turret, all built with wood. Imagine if something would happen that would start a fire there. It would be dreadful. And then the next picture. Now this castle, I said to you, 1285. It has a rotisserie turning device that turns the meat over the heat. On the left there, I don't know what it uses or how it works, but this was pretty amazing that they could actually do that back in those days. And then, now we're walking around on the place outside where the soldiers would walk to guard, and there's little holes in the sides of the tower to be able to shoot at them or whatever. Maybe bow and arrow long ago, who knows? It's fascinating. And then I think the next one is the castle courtyard. That was looking down from that same place where we just stood. And now, we're going to Harlem, my son's favorite city. He said to me that sometimes Tess, his girlfriend, gets overwhelmed by lots of things they do during the weekend, and she needs a little downtime. So he'll take himself on a train or tram or a bus or whatever, and he'll go into this neighboring city, which isn't too far away. And this is that was a windmill. He was gonna take me in to see the farmer's market that he likes and all that kind of stuff. He's a favorite coffee place. Well, they were having a street fair, and all of the things, these floats were made out of flowers. So it reminded me of the Rose Parade. It was very cool. So we're gonna end our tour here with some pictures of these floats. And I didn't wait for people to leave. There was a ton of people everywhere taking pictures, so I thought you could gain perspective of just how big these floats were. It was fascinating. That looks like a lizard could just about stick his tongue out at you. And I think the next one is our final shot. And who should we say goodbye to but SpongeBob? Yes, indeed, SpongeBob, have a good day, and thanks for being with us on our tour through Benelux. And here's the picture of the states and cities and places again, and I hope you'll get to see it somewhere too someday, because it was fabulous, and the best part was seeing my son. Okay. Now Phil is here. Phil has been to